Hello and welcome to Trail Mix by Gaze at the National Parks, the podcast.
Trail Mix is our short format episodes between our larger format episodes.
Last time on Trail Mix, we had hiked the first 2 miles of the Kalalau Trail on the Nepali coast on Kauai, an island of Hawaii.
We talked about a lot of things besides just the hike, including some important things to know before you go, like the fact that you should bring a lot of water with you.
And how to get permits.
Right.
And how to park.
Right.
And all of the safety concerns.
And a little bit of the history of the Nepali coast itself.
And how the Nepali coast flooded in 2018, which caused it to close for almost a year, or a little over a year.
14 months.
We were on the Kalalau Trail right after it opened in June of 2019.
Right.
So let's get back on the trail. So this was a Friday morning. We had gotten up at 6:30. We'd parked the car and we had gone to the trailhead for the Kalalau Trail.
Filled with anxiety
Because it had rained all day the day before.
And all week the week
and
before.
all week. And that it was absolutely going to be, we thought, raining this day.
Right.
And if it's raining, we're in a pickle.
Right.
Essentially.
Such a pickle.
Such a pickle. Right. We are in a pickle because the river that you have to cross after you do the first 2 miles of the Kalalau Trail, Hanakapiai stream, flash floods. And if it's raining, the current of the river is so strong that you will get swept away. And that is not great. You get swept right into the ocean.
Right.
It's not good.
No.
It's terrible, actually.
No.
So yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you. And that was a lot of the warnings that we had, read on weather.com, which is my homepage.
Your homepage for your life.
For my life.
Your
weather.com.
life page.
My life page were about, the rain and the fact that flash flooding, I believe, was a possibility through like 2 p.m. that day that we were hiking.
It was. And we were just like literally on pins and needles, like, oh my God, please don't rain. Yeah. I had prayed prayers in hopes that it would not rain. And so
Look at you.
It had not.
No.
So thus far.
Right.
Like it was clear. It was clean and clear and under control.
Right.
Like up until, we had reached this river. So we're currently staring at the river. We had just talked to this park ranger who was the state park ranger,
right,
who checked our permits and who was like, yeah, okay, you can keep going.
He actually was like, hey, listen, you know what? It's a great idea to hike that whole 11 miles out there, or the remaining 9. But he's like, you could just hike right up to Hanakapiai Falls. He's like, it's really beautiful there. It'll be an 8-mile round trip. You can swim. He's like, why don't you do that? He's like, I mean, if you want to hike all the way out, great. But this is my suggestion.
And we were like, well, we didn't come all the way this way to not try.
Right.
So we were like, no, we're gonna do it.
We're like, thank you very much, and we're gonna do it.
But we decided to not cross the river right there. We decided what we were gonna do is go down to the beach,
right,
and cross the river at the beach.
Right. So that involved like a little bit of kind of scrambling over some rocks. There were some bigger boulders on the side of the river there. I'd imagine the area that we were in, if the river is very, very high, would probably have been flowing water too, while the current was strong, and we didn't want to cross right there, which is a spot you can definitely cross right where the trail meets the river. We decided that it would be a little safer for us to hike down to that beach. So we did have to kind of surmount a bunch of boulders and kind of scramble over some rock to get down there. The river itself kind of goes over like a little bit, I wouldn't even call it a falls, but it does like kind of like drop down to the level of the beach very like gradually. And there are like 2 kind of big boulders there that mark that, and you can get onto the beach there. Now,
yes,
there was a man standing on the boulders.
I was literally about to mention
okay.
him. He was shirtless and he was standing on the boulders, and he was like, I don't know, 50.
Yeah, he was on the older side.
But he just like, he looked like a regal bulldog standing like on, what did we call him?
I feel like he was Poseidon incarnate. Like he was like, and he was screaming. Like he wasn't, and the children were screaming.
No, but he was yelling something.
He was yelling and we couldn't understand
crazy,
him.
and I didn't know what he was yelling about. At first I thought he was yelling at us, but he wasn't. He was just literally like yelling out into the ocean.
Yeah.
So you know what? I hope he got his feelings out.
Yeah.
And I hope, he's doing well.
I feel like he had come back from camping out there because he also had like a plastic bag filled with things.
Yeah, but he didn't have gear.
No.
Or his gear was somewhere else. I don't know. He was a mystery.
Also remember like the hippie commune.
The perfect getaway.
Also the perfect getaway.
We were literally like, I mentioned the perfect getaway
Right.
in this moment. You were like, what? And I was like, yeah, it's a murder mystery. People like died on
Right.
In the movie.
Yeah.
And you were like, oh, great.
Yeah.
It's real great.
Yeah.
But we were at that part where we had to take our shoes off.
Right.
And
It was kind of like,
across the river.
it was almost like a little lagoon.
It did, but
there.
it got like past our knees. It was a little deep there.
Oh yeah, it was very deep. It was less of a flow there, which was great because it was a lighter current at that point. So I felt very safe there. You did.
I did. I felt pretty safe there
Yeah.
too. I mean, you were walking and then your feet were like going like a foot into the sand.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like maybe not a foot, maybe like 8 inches into the sand, but with each step you took. But it wasn't too bad.
No.
But I could understand where like, you know, if it flash floods, that section too is going to get a little choppy.
Yeah.
So, but we got to the other side. It doesn't look very long.
No, it's
but
not far to cross.
you get to the other side. We put our shoes back on. We make our way back up some rocks.
Mm-hmm.
And then now we're on the other side and ready to like jump back on the trail.
Right.
And there were some restrooms right here. And these restrooms were like above ground restrooms that had, you know, like a little, like an alcove, like where you could walk up some stairs and there was a covering and then you could go in. And I was like, that's probably,
the last restroom stop.
Well, no, it wasn't the last restroom stop, but I was like, they probably made those alcove coverings so that people could sleep there.
Right.
Like
if need be.
If need be.
Right.
Because people get stuck on this side of the river all the time.
Yeah.
And that's what, you know, now we were nervous about that because we were officially on the other side of the river and we were like, okay. And I don't remember what time it was at this point. But
I think it was probably, I don't know, around 8. Yeah.
Maybe around 8.
Yeah.
So we decided, we're like, all right, let's just keep going.
Yeah. When you did hike across, before we got to those, the kind of the toilets, there were a lot of, you kind of go through a small grove of trees, and that's where you kind of had to hike back towards the part where you would cross the river, like if you would cross directly from the other side, to then kind of go and jog off to the right. But I just remember on the trees there were a lot of like flotation devices like tied there. Obviously, like the state park does that in case someone is in danger, and it's like, oh damn, somebody hopefully is there to untie that flotation device and throw it to that person so that they can be rescued. So that was also a little like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Here we are in the strong current zone now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that was a little bit, it was like, all right, well, you know, we have these options if this is a problem.
Yeah.
But hopefully nobody has to use them.
Right.
Right. I was curious why they couldn't put like a rope across to hold on to.
Yeah, especially because with Secret Falls,
we seen that in Secret Falls.
Yeah.
Right. Though we went to Secret Falls after Kalalau.
Right.
And so I wouldn't have made that. I only think about that in hindsight.
I guess it's probably because if the river is that strong, people will still think, oh, well, the rope will save me. And I bet you it doesn't. Like, I'm sure that's
doesn't.
like,
yeah, you're
that's
right.
like fail safe, false hope. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So immediately after this, right, like we see even more like danger signs that are like sharp cliff edges, falling rocks, all the things. Be very careful. We were like, all right, here we go. So immediately after these restrooms, it is like uphill again.
Oh, yeah. It's a straight shot.
Oh, that was really tough. And the trail, which had been like a solid like 3.5 to 4 feet and like red clay the whole time on the way to the beach, other than the time when it was just rocks, is now very narrow.
And very overgrown.
And so overgrown.
So one of the big issues that we had, which really made the hike difficult for us. And after talking to people after the trail and even on the trail had not been traversed in a year, basically.
And there was no sort of like, we're going to come through and weed whack the trail. That's not happening. So,
and that happens a lot of the times. Trails are mostly maintained because of footfall of people continuously. Obviously, there are park workers that come in and help to do the maintenance, like the Friends of the Kalalau Trail. But a lot of the times, trails just stay maintained because they're being trampled in the same sort of way. And yeah,
at this moment, like I had only brought shorts to hike in.
Right.
And I had, previously in Rocky Mountain National Park hiked in tights. And I was like, no, I'm not going to bring any tights to hike in Hawaii because like I don't think I'll need them.
Yeah.
But at this day, I really wished I would have had those.
Yeah.
Because like our legs were just going through it.
Yeah.
I didn't have like a whole lot of like cuts and nicks on my legs by any means, but it was just like you are just going through tall grass, overgrown trail, right and left.
Yeah.
And you're going straight up as you're doing it.
Yeah. So it wasn't very far after we had kind of jumped back on the trail that we encountered like a couple on their way back. I think they had gone all the way. They hadn't gone all the way to Kalalau. I think they had gone to the second beach.
The second beach there.
Yeah.
And they spent the night and then they were on their way back.
Right. And the guy was like, what are you guys doing? And we're like, we're trying to go all the way out. And he's like, okay, have a lot of fun. It's really he described it as snotty. He's like, it's really snotty up there.
Snotty up there.
And
I wasn't sure what
it's
he
snotty,
meant by
but
that.
it's fun. Like kind of.
So, right. And it was like, encountering people on this trail, like, because there were so few, like, it was like you had to talk to them and be like, okay, tell me everything that you know so that I can know. You depended on them.
Yeah. The kindness of strangers.
Literally.
Mm-hmm.
Like Blanche.
Oh, like Blanche
Dubois.
Not
from
Devereaux.
A Streetcar Named Desire. No, that's Blanche Devereaux from Golden Girls. No, Blanche Dubois depends on the kindness of strangers, just like we were this day. We keep going up and we're going up and up and up, and it feels endless. And like the grass is so overgrown, and at this point it's like we're not moving quickly.
Yeah.
And like
this
was the first time that I was like, I started to doubt our ability to get all the way there.
Right.
Was in this moment, which now we're going from like mile 3 into mile 4.
Maybe because we could not find trail markers.
There weren't trail markers. And the other thing was it was taking us forever to hike through.
Yeah.
Because it was overgrown and because it was so uphill.
Right.
And that was something we did not expect.
No.
Like we typically, like on a clear trail, can do like a mile in about like 10 to 15 minutes.
More like 15 is usually.
15 is a walking mile.
So we're kind of like, that's usually our gauge. So we're like, okay, let's, figure what 22 miles would be at 15 miles, a minute.
But I mean, I think we even
were
like
15 minutes.
Right. I think we even said, let's budget like 20 minutes a mile because this could be harder. It was taking us 45 minutes a mile at this point.
Yeah.
Because it was just so steep and so overgrown.
And very slippery.
And you had to be very precise about where you put your foot.
Yeah.
There were a couple of spots like where like waterfalls were running through where it was like, okay, thank God we did indoor bouldering because like I was like, put your foot there and then now do a switch and now switch my hands.
Yeah.
And now put my foot here and now get out and now slide down. I mean, like there were at least 3 times that happened.
Yeah. There was definitely a lot of like care that needed to be taken when we were hiking out.
We're continuing and then suddenly we get kind of to like the top of this one ridgeline. And what did we see when we were there? We
were able to see the beach that we were just on. Like this is also, I think you had said we saw the clapping tree earlier.
Yeah, this is where we saw the clapping tree.
Yeah, but we were able to see the beach from above, and good Lord, we were really
so
high up.
High.
Yeah,
we were so
high up. We were high up.
Yeah, high up in the air.
Yeah, it was really incredible to see how much ground we had covered, and what seemed like a short amount of time, but you're right, was actually probably more like, 45 minutes
45 minutes up.
Yeah.
So at this point, like, it kind of leveled out for a little bit up the top.
Yeah.
Up at the top, you got a little bit of a break. Like, it was like, okay, it's going to be flat here for a little while.
Yeah.
And you were still in like a little bit of forest cover here.
Yeah.
But as we were traveling, then we get to this like gate.
So we get to this, like, we're climbing up, and we get to, all of a sudden we see a fence, and there are these metal stairs that go through the fence that we have to climb over. And we basically were entering into a watershed protection area that was managed by the Forestry and Wildlife Organization of Hawaii. And this is like for a decent part of the trail, we would be in this section of the fence until I think we were closer probably to the beach, to Kalalau.
So we had to like crawl over like a thing in order to get over to the other side of the fence.
Right.
It's not that big a deal. It's just like a grade or whatever.
Yeah, like a metal staircase, like a graded staircase.
I believe we went like down again, back into rainforest, and it was a little slippery here. Like, I felt like it was a little muddier here than it was before.
Yeah.
And
because it was more exposed too.
It was more exposed. You fell a couple more times here.
I did.
I managed to not fall. And then, yeah, like there were a couple of other like waterfalls here, but it was around this time when we started to like look at the time and gauge. By this time, it was 10 a.m.
Right.
And we were like,
what do we want to do?
I think we've only come for 5 miles, because there were some trail markers. There are trail markers built into the trail. However, they are so easy to miss because they're like on the ground, and they're like maybe carved into a rock
staircases.
Right. And then you will just not see them.
Yeah.
And especially if things are overgrown. So we're just like looking at sort of like what our
time budget was.
Our time budget, and also what our phones were saying, you know, as far as like how far we may have gone.
Right.
And I was like,
and we all know that
we've
she
only
lies.
gone, and she lies sometimes. I think we've only gone like 5 miles.
Right.
And it's 10 a.m.
Right.
And we've been doing this for 4 hours.
Right.
So we took a look at the time, and yeah, that's when we had to have a really face the music conversation.
Yeah. And I think we were good about that with one another. We actually made a pact with one another before we even took off that morning. That night, we were like, listen, if at any point one of us wants to pull the trigger and say stop because they feel unsafe
and murder each other,
then we would agree.
Right.
And
like
there would be no hard feelings.
No.
There would be no FOMO. There would be nothing. It was like 100%. The both of us were like, absolutely. And that's always the case. I think you and I have that like really unspoken like agreement. But I think because we had done so much research and there was so much to be concerned about, that we were like, hey, this actually needs to be said out loud right now. So we had, you're right, we kind of come into this ridge line. There was a waterfall right near us. We both ate a peanut butter sandwich.
We ate a peanut butter sandwich.
And we're like, listen, what do we want to do?
What do we want to do?
So we're like, let's hike till noon and let's see how we feel.
And let's see where we are.
And let's see where we are.
Because we wanted to be back by like 8 p.m.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we
Fool's
were like,
errands, folks.
Well, it had taken us 4 hours,
right,
to do
maybe 4.5 miles,
maybe 5 miles.
Yeah,
and so I was like, we don't have 22 hours. Like, I mean, we're like now averaging an hour per mile.
Yeah,
and like that's not great.
Yeah, no, it wasn't great. So we hiked a little bit more now we're back into the woods a little bit.
We're back into the woods a little bit, but now we're in incline woods.
Right. But before that, there was that really big waterfall that had like a bunch of logs that we had to traverse over.
We did.
And like climb over. It was not great. It was like a tangle of
this was like
trees.
Not fun because it was all slippery wood. And it was be very careful where you place your foot.
Yeah.
Because here's the other thing is like, it was wet.
Yeah.
Everything's treachery now.
Yeah.
Literally, like something that looks like a normal walk from one place to another can now be super treacherous.
Yeah.
So we make it over those trees
Yeah.
And then we start heading back up.
Yeah.
And for a long time, it felt very sort of like peaceful, calm, uphill, like tree covering.
Right. You could have actually not even been in Hawaii at this point.
Yeah,
It could have been anywhere.
It was beautiful and it was easy for the most part at this section. And then it was like the forest opened up.
Yeah.
And when the forest opened up here, you were exposed.
Oh, yeah.
Like you're walking and it's like, there's the ocean right on your right.
Like,
and like
4,000 feet below.
Essentially like on a cliff edge.
Yeah.
But I mean, you're far enough in to feel like safe a little bit, but like you don't have like, if you fall to your right, you don't have like
anything,
a forest to catch you. Like you're not inside of a forest. You're just exposed. So I was like, are we kidding? And at this point I was in the front and I was moving.
Yeah.
I was moving quickly, trying our best to like make up for some lost time here. Like I remember like going and going and going. And like, I was like, is this going to get better anytime soon? And it didn't.
Right. Eventually, though, that like kind of you turn back in towards the valley. And
and
the trail becomes wider again.
The trail becomes wider. And what I thought was going to like make us go down, we actually went up even higher.
Right.
And so we went through this sort of like tight sort of squeeze of like some like twists to go straight up between some rocks. And then we ended up on like, it was a wider trail.
And covered again in trees.
And
this is where we decided to take a set.
And at this time we took a set and it was now 11 o'clock. And we were like, okay, I think we've gone at least another mile or a mile and change. And we're sitting there and then down below us, what looked like at least 2 miles away was like this tiny speck of a person that like moved around this one corner.
Yeah.
And then it was like 4 other people moved. And they were people we had seen in the parking lot earlier that day.
That were clearly camping.
And we were like, okay, that's what we have to do next. So we had a very serious sister conversation in this moment. And we were like, all right, what do we do?
Right. And we decided that we had come probably about 5 miles at this point.
We'd come about 5, maybe 5.5.
And we said,
and it was 11:30 at this point. After we were done sitting and eating, which we took about 15 minutes to do that. 11:30.
Yeah. So we thought, okay, so it's literally taken us 5.5 hours to get to this point, and we had to do the math. And we actually talked like, well, could we stay on the beach, or could we like shelter if we went out to the beach and came back midway, because there was like a campground shelter. We had looked that up the day before. Yeah. Could we just sleep there? Because most people said you don't need a tent or a sleeping bag. You can just like sleep on the ground. It's happened.
Right.
And
the other reality was like, do we have enough water?
Right.
And at that point I had gone through like maybe 3/4 of my bladder at that point. And you had maybe gone through like half.
Right. You drink faster than I do.
But we didn't have iodine pills.
No.
Because we were like, we'd read an article where this guy was like, I had a, like a 2-liter bladder, and I was fine to do it there and back. And we had like 3-liter bladders, and we also had like 4 bottles of water. Right. And so we were like, I think we have enough water.
Right.
Shock, we didn't have enough water.
But basically we sweat everything out too.
Oh, yeah.
So,
we had to make a game time decision.
Yeah.
And we decided
that we were going to turn back.
I know.
Yeah.
It was one of those, it was like, well, the trail won that day and we just had to deal with that.
Yeah.
Sometimes being a beast doesn't mean you finish.
Right.
So.
And I think we both were really okay with the decision we made, because it was really the toughest thing that you and I had done. I think it may have been a different story if the conditions were different in a lot of ways. Going now, after the trail has been open for 3-4 months, maybe the trail conditions are better. Maybe they're not.
And I would actually bring everything to prepare to camp.
Right. If it hadn't rained for a week, maybe it would have been better.
But
there's no way to know. And, unfortunately, sometimes, just as we've faced in national parks, sometimes the conditions don't just cooperate, and you are faced just dealing with what you have, and you have to make the best of it, and you have to make really good choices and decisions.
Right. You have to make smart choices, smart decisions, always. And this was one of those moments where we were like, all right, in order to finish this in daylight and feel like we're still alive, we need to turn back now.
Right.
We did some math. We were like, we're probably going to like get out of here around
like 2.
No, was it 2?
Yeah. Like, oh no, you're right. Maybe it was later. It would have been like
later.
4.
It was like 4
o'clock.
or 5.
Yeah.
And right.
And we were like, we're going right to the beach and going in the water.
We are. Yes, we are.
Yeah.
Because the other thing was we'd not made it to Crawler's Ledge.
No.
And we were kind of really dreading having to do Crawler's Ledge.
Yeah.
Me personally, I know you were too.
Yes.
In that moment, we were like, all right, well, we're not going to do Crawler's Ledge, but it is kind of like, oh, we're going to have to turn around and do all of what we just did again.
And I think that was also on our minds too. It was
It
like,
was.
hey, remember all that tough stuff that we did on the way out? Remember, we have to do that all the way back. And yeah, there was a lot of pause there that made the decision, I think, a little easier in both of our headspaces.
There was also like, it's true that some people have been known to hike all the way out to the Kalalau Beach and then like pay a boat to bring them back.
It's not legal though.
It's not legal though.
Right.
But some people have.
And it's a lot of money.
Yes.
You have to have that money.
And you got to have that good cold cash.
You got to make that paper, girl.
Yes, you do. So we did not have that.
No.
So we were like, we're turning around and we're going back.
Yeah. I mean, and the hike back was fine. Like we ended up running into like a family. I believe they were French or French Canadian, and they had asked us a little bit about, this is like right at that slippery waterfall with all those down trees. They'd asked us about how far we had gone, and you know, we gave them the information, and then just kind of continued to traverse back to the beach. The beach was very, very popular at that point. There were a lot of people
at the beach that day.
We also, when we got back to the beach, before the beach, we were like, do we hike out to Hanakapiai Falls?
Oh yeah, there was
this
that
was
question.
Like a thought. Like we ended up seeing people that had hiked out.
We sat down and we ate more sandwiches. Yeah. I mean, Kalalau Trail, aka where we sat and ate sandwiches, is what we could call this trail. But yeah, we sat and ate another sandwich, and then there was an
older couple
who passed through, and they were like, yeah, we camped last night. And we were like, we made it to this mile. And how is it after that? And they were like, it's rough.
Yeah.
It's really rough, and it's really overgrown. And it took us a long time to get there. And she had done it back.
Oh, a long time ago.
Like 15 years ago.
Right.
And she was like, oh, and it was so clear, and it was a lot easier then. Yeah. She was like, but this was rough coming back, at this time.
Yeah. And then there was another older couple that had come from the falls, and we had asked them,
right,
hey, how was the hike out there? They're like, it's craggy. The ground, there's a lot of roots. You're hiking over a lot of different things.
Because we were like, okay, we either hike the 2 miles back, and we're just like, all right, that's
we're going to the beach.
and we're going to the beach, or we hike up to the falls and swim and come back, which is like a mile there, or 2 miles.
2 miles there, yeah.
It's 2 miles there, 2 miles back, and then 2 miles to the parking lot.
Yeah.
We ultimately decided, we were like, you know what? No.
Yeah.
We're
I think
not
we also didn't want to hike
falls.
wet either.
We didn't want to hike wet. We were like, let's just go back to the parking lot. So we did. We made our way back.
And saw a ton of people coming out just for the day hike to the Hanakapiai stream and the beach.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just a beautiful way to do that.
Yeah. It's really, really great. And the first thing we did was like literally take everything off that would keep us legal.
I want to add this. We made our way, back across this 2 miles, which was, by the time we had done like a mile, we were like, we made the right choice. We were so tired.
Yeah.
And we got into the final descent, and we were like, oh my God, we're getting so close. We made the right decision.
Yeah.
At that point, my feet were like cut up.
Dead.
They were so dead. And then we finally get back to the road right next to, literally next to the trailhead. We made our way back to the parking lot, and when we got to the parking lot, it started to rain.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
And I was like, look at this. Prayers answered.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
It started to rain, and then...
it was quick. It was a quick little burst.
It was a quick little burst of rain, but I was like, hello.
Yeah.
There we go. It didn't rain until after we were done.
Yeah.
And then we hiked. We had to walk back the mile to the car, but we literally put everything in the car. We stripped down and we went right into the water. And this is where we saw that really hot guy at the beach.
Yeah.
With his family.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was one of those moments where I was like, oh, there's my future family.
You're like, I'm thirsty for a lot of things right now. Water and this man.
Water and this beautiful man.
Yeah.
Who he talked to us because he was like, he asked us about the shuttle and I was just tongue-tied. And he was like, yeah, it's the shuttle. And it was like, yeah, it should be coming around really soon and stuff. So, yeah. But do you need a ride?
Yeah.
We didn't have enough room to give any of them rides, though. So we're going to end this trail mix with the game. But first, I do want to say, if I were to do Kalalau again, anytime soon, I would probably plan to camp.
Yeah, I think so.
And I would have those iodine pills.
Yeah. I've done
water.
that. I've had iodine pills before when I was in Peru, when I hiked Machu Picchu. That was like a thing. They're like, bring these.
Yeah.
And again, you've done most of that research for this. So
I did. I
wish I had been a little bit more of astute and just studied the trail a little bit more.
Yeah. I mean, but I think even had we done that, we would not have been prepared for how overgrown it was.
Yeah.
And we would have had to bring a lot of camping gear.
Yeah.
Okay. So, here we go. One has to stay hardest hiking trails.
Great.
Are you ready?
I am.
Okay. Kalalau Trail.
Mm-hmm.
Yosemite Falls.
I knew she was going to be there.
Angel's Landing.
One has to stay.
Yes.
Angel's Landing. My favorite.
That is your favorite?
I love Angel's Landing.
Okay.
I do.
I think it's just
not
because
torturous.
you love that photograph.
Oh.
The photograph from way up high.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, it is worth the photograph.
Yeah.
When you get all the way up there for your dating profiles that you're not on right now.
That's right. Yes. So I'm going to just pose the same three to you.
The same
because
three.
I feel like those are our tougher ones. I can't think of a third one that's harder than Angel's Landing.
One has to stay. I'm going to say Kalalau.
Oh.
I am.
All right.
I know. We didn't even get to finish it, but
because of the adventure that
Yosemite Falls is so hard.
Yeah.
And then Angel's Landing is beautiful and it's not too bad, but those chains were traumatic for me. But Kalalau was you just get so much payoff. The payoff is happening the whole time.
Yeah.
So whereas Angel's Landing, the payoff is happening most of the time, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I felt with Yosemite Falls, it wasn't until the very top.
Yeah.
And then I felt there were better payoffs at the top of other hikes. So that's where.
Okay, that's
what I
fair.
feel. This has been Trail Mix by Gaze at the National Parks, the podcast, and we're here to remind you to hike early and hike often, and that adventure is always out there.
Gaze at the National Parks was created and is hosted by Dustin Ballard and Michael Ryan.
Follow us on Instagram at Gaze at the National Parks. Contact us at gazeatthenationalparks@gmail.com. And to find out more about the trails in the national parks, visit our website at gazeatthenationalparks.com.
This episode was edited by Dustin Ballard.
All original artwork featured on Instagram and on our website is by Michael Ryan. All original music is by Dave Seaman and performed by Dave Seaman, Mariella Klinger, and Sean Sklios. Our music producer is Skyler Fortgang.
We would also like to acknowledge that while hiking on the Kalalau Trail, that we were on the traditional lands of the Hanakapiai people.